Welcome to this new Tech Captains episode. So today with Gareth, we welcome Sue Lee, who is currently CTO at Swipe Guide, a company. I'll try to summarize it that like I saw on the website, that helps simplify the work of people on the front line. In my understanding, the manual workers, but you'll tell us more about it in a bit. But just before that, Sue, like to start, I look at your LinkedIn, and the main question that came to my mind is how a middle school teacher in Hawaii becomes a CTO in Amsterdam.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really happy to talk about my tech journey because I hope that it helps answer maybe some questions that people might be wondering about, what should they do with their lives? What should they go into? And honestly, the truth of it is I think it really doesn't, matter what you pick at first because life is it's a lifelong journeying experience. And I think for me, when I started out, I was always quite interested
Yeah.
in how technology can actually enable creativity. I actually had studied art and political science in college, and I was doing a lot with creative software, the Adobe Creative Cloud. I was really interested in how software actually can help, empower people to create digital experiences. And when I graduated, actually, I joined a Teach for America program, and I found myself actually in a teaching role that was actually helping kids using software kind of in a very rural area where
Yeah.
the income wasn't that high. There wasn't a lot of technology there, and it was so amazing to help kids actually use creative software to create yearbooks, to create newspaper layouts, to design things. I loved the Gifted and Talented program where we used cameras to help kids tell stories. So I was also very, very interested in that, how technology can be a means of creative expression. And of course, naturally, tech products are kind of the ultimate expression of
Yeah.
that. You're actually able to then build a service or, something that someone can use in the end. And I think looking back on it, I realize now that my experience in the classroom actually helped me with a lot of my management and leadership skills today, because after you can manage a class of 20 25 teenagers that are all kind of at different levels, all working on different things, all different learning styles, actually then working with adults and even software engineers is a lot easier. um, so to kind of share a little bit more how I ended up then in tech was,
Yeah.
then through that I became very interested in actually designing learning experiences, and I did a master's at the Harvard Graduate School of Education that was about technology and innovation in education. So looking at different ways to design digital learning experiences. This was back in the day when MOOCs were all the rage. And I worked on several projects for global citizenship for kids, at various projects about language learning, for example. And I kind of, and at this time I moved to Berlin and I got into the startup industry, and I
Hmm.
thought this was so cool. It was a bunch of 20-year-olds running around with all this VC money, launching companies. And I ended up working for, I was one of the first instructional designers for Career Foundry. They were an online platform to help people learn about UX design and coding. And I thought that was so cool actually to get into this space.
Yeah.
So I ended up moving to Amsterdam a few years later, and was the head of product for designing a children's game, and also curriculum for teachers for teaching about programming concepts to kids, and actually found out we had to also teach the teachers also about the programming concepts as well. So I've always been really passionate about the role of technology in education and creativity. And then through that product role, ended up in different product roles, and somewhere down the line also had been learning to code as well on the side.
Hmm.
And a few years ago, I have found the opportunity at Swipe Guide, and I ended up actually just joining as a software developer. And Swipe Guide really drew me, stood out to me because it was also a platform to help people learn procedures. It was actually designed by our CPO, who has a background in instructional design. The platform is designed in a way to be step by step and very easy for people to learn the steps. So I thought that was a very cool product.
Nice. But
Um,
what I'm interested in what you tell me here, Sue, is that you say that you started in design and product roles, and then you learned programming by yourself on the side, like many developers, I suppose. But you didn't spend that much time in development roles. You spend a lot of time in tech, but not so much on like hands-on technical. And you became CTO. Like, how do you find that as a role? Like, is your role very technical? Are you struggling, or do you find easy? Like, or are your other roles actually empowering the CTO role?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I had actually taken some courses. I did some part-time courses. I ended up doing a full-time boot camp as well, over the course of several years. And actually, I always thought that maybe I would become a more technical product lead. But then after my course, I thought, well, why don't I just try to interview it and see if I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy it? And I ended up getting some offers, and I was a software developer at Swipe Guide for about half a year. And through the transition of the company, of the former CTO leaving, I was promoted internally, which was an amazing opportunity. And of course, in the beginning, I was completely very, very insecure, and thought that I need way more experience. But actually, and of course it's been a roller coaster of learning about the technology, about the product. But actually, what I feel is that the technology and the product are not two separate things. In a lot of companies you have a product role and a technology role, but I actually think that the product is actually the technology. The technology is a product. The technology enables the product also as well.
Yeah.
And I think it helped me a lot to actually develop on the code to understand the product that we're working with. And the other part I think that's very important, other than learning about the coding and the architecture and the infrastructure, is working with my team, and enabling them as the experts, empowering them, and working together to make sure that we are solving the right problems. I think my role as a tech leader, it's not to know necessarily the details of every single thing, and it's not to have all the answers. I think it's really about posing the right questions, asking the whys, and making sure that we are prioritizing and tackling the right problems, and then working with the team to figure out those solutions.
So, I mean, for people probably who are listening, who maybe like yourselves are looking to their first kind of CTO role. So you had this, as you explained, you joined this company, you started as a full stack developer, I think, and then suddenly this opportunity presented itself, which you interviewed for and you got the role. I mean, that day one, when you were the new CTO, what was the kind of first thing you thought? Okay, I've got to go and focus on this immediately. What did you think was your first priority, and did that turn out to be the right sort of approach that you took?
Yeah, so I think I thought about my role in four categories. There's team, people, technology, and then maybe processes. So these are kind of the several buckets that I knew that I wanted to tackle. I think at the moment, at that point in time, one of the major challenges was actually in the processes. I think we came from a history of working quite in a bit of a waterfall kind of requirements driven fashion, and we ended up with really bloated features, which actually ends up leads to a lot of technical debt because of complexity, because of changing business requirements. So that was one area that I wanted to tackle first, to make sure that the development process itself and the product development process was smoother, that we're able to learn faster, get feedback, and be able to adapt, because in a startup, things are changing so rapidly in the market, that as a startup, you really can't afford to be kind of stuck on building a feature or something that you've committed to on the the roadmap, like months ago. So that was one thing that I'm really proud of, being able to transform that in the organization today. The other part was team. So being able to hire the right people, get the right skill sets on board. We had I think several less people at that time, and being able to identify what are the right skill sets that we need to go forward. For the technology itself, I think the main needs were kind of understanding the infrastructure and understanding what were the technologies that we needed in order to speed up the development, to unblock the team. So, for example, upgrading to the latest libraries, looking at the speed of the pipelines, for example, to be able to get feedback back to the developers faster, that developer experience. And then, of course, learning more about the product and the manufacturing industry and the customers themselves. So, I think the CTO role is, it's not actually just purely technical. I think as a CTO, my role is to understand how the technology can enable the business. And through that, you can't really extract the product from that, because that is the vehicle also in which you're trying to grow and to reach more users and customers.
Yeah,
that makes sense. You go, Garrett.
I was just going to say, I'm kind of glad you said, the first thing you looked at was your team. I mean, I've had a few CTO roles now, and that is always the first thing I do. Is I try, and when I drop in, it's like get to know who the people are, because that's the most important thing. The technology issues, they're going to take time to resolve anyway. They're 6 months, they're 12 months, but all your team could leave tomorrow if they're not very happy, right? So that usually is where I would focus first. Yeah. Anyway, Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, no, but like speaking of the technology, like I was wondering, what is your tech stack? What are the choices that you made and why you made those choices?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a React web application, web platform with Node in the backend. We're using a GraphQL API. Our infrastructure is hosted on AWS. And in addition to that, we also provide customers a native app that is in with React Native. We compile to iOS and Android to provide a lot of the customers with the offline access that they need in the factories.
I see. So did you make these choices so your developers could jump between front end and back end easily, or is there another reason?
So that's a really great reason. So I think originally, I think this was also established, and actually we haven't changed much of it. And it's really nice that all of the team is full stack. I really believe in, T-shaped profiles and people that can learn everything. Because if you're presented with a business problem, as a CTO, as a team lead, I don't want to, assign people, a certain task, right? Because it's like, we have a problem and let's all work together to figure out how to solve it. And that require skill sets from the front end to the back end to sometimes DevOps to design, for example. We're also now moving more to TypeScript, of course, both in the server side and in the front end. And I think it is a huge advantage to be able to work with these web technologies, also because of the speed that you can develop as well. And of course, I think with the TypeScript, it's definitely helping a lot. The GraphQL API, it's already kind of typed in that kind of way, but now being able to have actually also more checks in place and taking advantage of the typing that is available nowadays.
So you mentioned something which relates to a question I wanted to ask. I think you said that you decided to make those decisions around building your mobile app for offline use. So I was going to ask the question, I'm guessing that you have people using your application who are on a large factory floor, probably with places where can be limited connectivity. So I was going to ask about how you manage the sort of resilience and that sort of offline capability.
A good question.
We offer that through the native app that customers can download from the app stores.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
then of course we have different. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so I mean, because I saw some demos, I mean, it looked really good, your video. So if I'm working with a particular machine, I can look up a set of processes or an SOP for how to do something on that machine. So if I'm offline, if I've got no connectivity, I can still do that. Can I feed back from the app can I provide feedback on what I've seen?
Oh, right. Yeah. So the mechanism. So we allow
Yeah.
customers also to download the content to their device so they can access it on the device itself. And for some other features that we have, like checklists, for example, where maybe feedback is being sent, we cache that until the user is back online and then
Okay.
send it over.
Okay.
That makes sense. And so I was wondering, because you mentioned the full stack, and how do you organize the team and work? Like, I don't know, how many developers you have?
I have a product team of about roughly 10 people right now, including a really integrated QA, integrated designer.
So how do you organize the work between all of them, especially with your philosophy of like enabling full stack and anybody can do kind of anything? Like, where do you draw the lines and the boundaries with people's strengths and what people like and dislike?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we've experimented with a lot of different formats. I think last quarter, it really depends on the business goals. So, last quarter we were actually launching a brand new product, which is the skills development module. And for that, we decided to actually split up the teams to have different focus areas. One with, for example, was around hardening the API. So, and also continuing with the maintenance of the smart the guides, the Swipe Guides platform. And then we had a team that was really focused around the business goal of launching the first version of skills development. I think this quarter, we're all one big team with a shared goal of making sure that that the first launch and the onboarding of first customers towards getting a really good first user effort score. And so we're all one team. So I think the question, how do you organize? First of all, it's around the business goals. What do we want to achieve? And then we work in 2 week sprints, and so we have a cycle of actually refining the tickets together. That's with the QA, that's with the designer, and then from there, actually the team prioritizes and plans the sprints based on the estimations of the stories. We've also had different models that we've experimented before with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe sometimes we need to have a DevOps engineer separate because there's really specific DevOps goals. For example, when we were working on reducing deployment times, or if there's a specific need, for example, and sometimes then I'll pull in actually developers that have DevOps skill sets to create this small like DevOps circle, DevOps team, for example. So that's another kind of model on how we worked before. If there is a business goal that's specific to the native app, we'll have the mobile app lead, and then pull in some people that have experience and worked on native app, or even are just interested in learning. But otherwise, right now our main business goal is around the platform itself and the skills admin experience and the guides experience. So we're one big team working together, and it's been really amazing to see people learn. So our DevOps engineer, for example, is also learning a bit of backend development, as that is closely related.
Mm-hmm.
For the app developers, they learn a bit of the backend. So again, it's about being T-shaped, right? No one is an expert in everything, but at least being able to talk to other people on your team if you're facing a backend problem, and maybe if you're not a backend developer or very strong one, but then you just can have a conversation about that and have the same understanding, so that teams are not blocked. I think what's really important is that teams are fully empowered and autonomous and have all the skill sets that they need in order to solve a problem or to achieve a goal.
Yeah, and I noticed again, I was watching some of your videos last night, and it shows this language simplification feature that you have, which, by the way, I thought the UX was very nicely done there. It's very clean, looks very, very, very easy to use. But I was wondering, the AI behind that, is that something? Did you do any specific retraining of the AI for your, for the world that you swim in, or did you use something like Hyperwrite, which is I know is a service that does that? Or can you talk a bit about that?
So I think maybe you're talking about the feature that we have to improve instructions.
Yes.
I guess,
yes.
yeah. So sometimes, we come from the industry where customers have these really long, complicated instructions and PDFs, and we try to simplify that. And so I don't know how much I can share, but we are using actually OpenAI. We're using the Azure private instance of OpenAI, because I know that many of our customers are very concerned about data security. And I said, no, don't worry. Nothing is going into the public model, right? We have a private instance of that. I think at the moment, AI is also very, very exciting, but I'm also curious to kind of see the future of how I think the challenge is, and especially in this industry, is being able to have data to be able to train the model with, right? We have, customers that have all sorts of manufacturing secrets that, that we need to be very, very careful of. And I think in the future, it would be very, very cool to work with an innovative customer, an early adopter that is very interested in trialing and try to improve the model for their particular instruction data set. But at the moment, I think we're just doing some experimentations. And the goal of that feature, actually, we have an in-house instructional designer. We thought, can we try to automate some of what our instructional designer does with the feedback that she gives to customers to improve the instructions, like using direct voice or being clear, using a noun and a verb, making sure there's enough details. And it's very interesting to see, internally when we test things, you have a certain result, and then it goes out in the wild with real data and customers. And that's when you realize you have to keep iterating, of course. But then I think one of the main challenges we have to figure out also is the data security piece, and how we can do that with AI in a very, very way that still makes sure that we that we reassure customers about the risk and the compliance of their data.
Yeah, it's always amazing, like you say, once something gets out in the real world, how it, you get a completely different sort of picture of how people use it and the problems that they encounter. And then I guess just a related question, because you mentioned data, and that's the world that I'm in. And I was just wondering, because I saw on your website you were talking about setting up a data warehouse. And then I wondered, are you bringing real-time data into that? Are you looking to use any kind of data lake or data mesh? Can you talk a little bit about some of your data strategy?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm very happy because we come from the, back in the day with like Excel spreadsheets and everything with our data. And now we actually have quite a nice data warehouse that we have in Redshift. And we're using a third-party BI tool called ThoughtSpot, which is very cool. There's an NLP model behind it. So it's very easy to actually create charts and data visualizations for our customers to help them answer, any sort of data insights that they have. And so we provide our customers with embedded dashboards and charts to show them about the adoption and the usage of their content and of their guides. And we also offer customers a possibility through the API also to pull out their data in case they want to combine the swipe guide data with other data sources that they may have in their own data lake. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm very excited also to take the next steps to see, okay, what other data insights can we get out of the usage adoption data and the content data as well from the customers.
And Sue, so we have a tradition in the podcast that the guests presents a book that they really liked, and the one you said you would like to present is Inspired. Sorry. Oh. Sorry, I was reading the title. So yeah, Inspired. So how to create tech products customers love. So can you tell us more about the choice?
Yeah, it's a little bit of it's a few years old, this book, but when I read this book, I just felt like it just resonated so much with me, because even though it's it's kind of catered to product managers, I guess, but there's a lot of things I think that are relevant. Because I see this interconnectivity between technology and between the product. And one of the things in the book, they talk about, okay, how do you create this, product organization, deliver the right product to customers. They talk about the right people, the right process, the right product, the right culture. But of course, the main idea, I think, of the book is make, the right people. And this reminds me of actually another book that I read recently that I also liked, which is about, it's called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And I think one idea that I took away from both of these books is one line that I really love from Inspired, which is about your engineering team. You want a team of missionaries, not mercenaries, right? So people that understand the problem with you and are kind of along the journey to help to solve that problem, and not mercenaries, right? Not like, okay, you get a task and then you have to finish it. I think there was someone else that also said, I don't remember who it was, someone very brilliant, but he said, if you're just asking your software developers to code, you're not getting half the value actually out of them. software developers in general, very analytical, very curious, and some of the ideas that the team comes up with is just amazing. It's nothing that some business person or customer could have thought of, for example. And the other kind of theme along with this, another line that I really loved from Good to Great by Jim Collins was, so they were talking about, okay, what makes successful companies? The traditional idea is that you have your idea, right, and then you get all your people on board to execute that idea. So but actually what they said that I thought was really cool was, first get your people on the bus and then figure out where you should take that bus, because the people that you bring on are going to help you kind of shape the direction and the solution that is the right way to go, actually. So back to your point, Gareth, I think the team is incredibly important. Not only the skill sets, but the kind of the mindset and the values and the culture around that as well.
Yeah. So I watched an interesting video, which a few weeks ago. So I'm a big Formula One fan, and it was a video about Mercedes, and Mercedes have a performance division called AMG. So AMG, I think, used to be a separate company, and Mercedes bought them 20 years ago or something. But one of the things they do is they build engines, and they have one man. So they have a philosophy of one man, one engine, or one person, one engine. Right, so one person will build an engine from scratch and put it in the car. He puts his net and has a nameplate on it. Right, this is the guy that built your engine, or the person that built your engine. What was interesting and how it relates to your product was they showed the whole process, and they have all of these tools. They use a lot of AR, so they have the manuals where they'll say you need to do this and this, and then the guy can put a headset on and he can see what that component will look like on the engine, which I thought was fantastic. And I was wondering if you have any plans to sort of include some AR into your application, because it would seem like a good fit, right?
Yeah, so we've experimented with a lot of things. We also have a wearable device. So the native app, for example, is compatible on the RealWear headset, for example, and we've tried a bit also with Google Lens as well. And we've done a little bit of experimentation also with some AR calling technology. So if an operator actually is in a guide and has trouble, gets stuck, they can call a remote operator, and then through this call, there's augmented reality to, for example, turn a knob that, with the camera on that part of the machine, for example. So there's definitely things that we have tried. We want to also in the future do more with voice control, for example, for more hands-free operating and be able to kind of see the instruction in the lens or the headset. So I think there's a lot of potential, and because we are a CMS as well, I think it'd be really interesting to see if there's videos that maybe customers can upload that would be a good case for doing something with augmented reality and showing that. Maybe we need to support those files in the near future and maybe do a hack day around that.
There you go. All right.
Cool. Well, on these words, we will conclude here. Sue, thank you very much for coming today in this show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sue.
Thank you. And for everybody listening, we will be back in 2 weeks. Thank you. Bye-bye.